The bells of Melgrave Abbey have not rung in over 200 years. 6 are accounted for. But what tolls the 7th when no bell is there at all? It was in the late October of 1911 when Professor Lionel Greaves, lecturer in medieval liturgical architecture, was persuaded to visit the ruins of Melgrave Abbey, a long-dissolved monastic site buried deep within the Lincolnshire fens. He had received a letter from the estate steward of Lord Casterbridge, the present owner of the lands, requesting his assistance in identifying a peculiar chime structure discovered during drainage work on the western cloister. The site was ancient, predating even the dissolution, and largely overgrown. But Greaves's interest was piqued by one phrase in particular. An architectural anomaly exists in the chapel tower. There appears to be a 7th bell, though records account for only 6 and no mechanism connects it. Intrigued, Greaves arranged to travel that weekend, arriving by pony cart to the lonely stone skeleton of the abbey just before twilight. The grounds were overrun with nettles, and a dense fog clung low to the marshes like the hem of a heavy cloak. He was greeted by Mr. Holbrook, the steward, thin, sharp-nosed, and anxious in movement. "You'll be staying in the gatehouse," Holbrook said. "There's no one else here. Lord Casterbridge finds the place disquieting." The abbey's bell tower was mostly intact, tall, gray, weather-eaten. Inside, a spiral staircase led to a wooden chamber housing 6 large bronze bells, each mounted and rusted through with centuries of moss and guano. But the 7th was absent. And yet, there was an indentation in the stonework beside the 6th bell, perfectly measured along with the remains of an ancient iron bracket. No bell hung there now, nor was there any rope or pulley. But Greaves observed unmistakable wear on the floor below, as if something immensely heavy had once swung there. "Odd," he muttered. It was removed, or it removed itself. The next day, Holbrook brought him an old parish book recovered from a nearby rectory. It contained accounts of the abbey's suppression under Henry VIII, as well as a curious entry dated 1542. 6 bells did ring to mark the hours. The 7th was sealed. "Let none sound it, lest he stir the watcher in the north aisle." Greaves raised an eyebrow. "Watcher? What nonsense is this?" "Local legend," said Holbrook quietly. "They say the 7th bell wasn't made by men. It rang only once, at the hour the last abbot was hanged." That night, as he wrote up his observations in the gatehouse, a strange sound stirred him from his journal. A bell, clear and low, pealed once through the thickening fog. He opened the shutters. The bell tower was dark, empty. On the 3rd day, Greaves ventured farther than before into the north aisle, a collapsed corridor thick with ivy. There, half buried beneath brambles and black earth, he uncovered a sealed stone slab, cold to the touch despite the weak sun. Etched into its surface was an unfamiliar sigil, a circle bound in iron, pierced through by 7 strokes. He recorded the symbol carefully, sketching it into his journal, intending to cross-reference it with monastic seals from the 14th century. But that night, his journal was found open on the gatehouse floor. The sketch of the sigil had been crossed through violently in thick, fresh ink, and no one else had been in the gatehouse. Each night the 7th bell grew louder, though no bell hung in the empty bracket. Holbrook grew pale and unsteady. "It's ringing for you now," he said on the 4th morning. "Once to wake, twice to summon, thrice to open." "Open what?" Greaves snapped. "Not what," Holbrook whispered. "Where?" That night the bell rang 3 times. Determined to document it fully, Greaves returned to the north aisle. Under the slab, using tools borrowed from the groundskeeper's shed, he pried loose the stone. Below lay a charred cavity, its walls scorched black, and within, nothing but dust, bones, and 7 rusted iron clappers, each etched with a name. The final one was blank. He left the pit open. That night a storm rose. At midnight a 4th toll echoed through the tower. Then a 5th. With each toll, windows shook, and wind clawed through the cloister like fingers through hair. Holbrook was missing by dawn. Greaves, attempting to flee, found the cart axle split, and the footbridge submerged by unnatural tide. He was trapped. Back in the abbey, the tower had changed. The bracket of the seventh bell now bore a black rope, fresh and hanging. No bell above, but Greaves could feel it. Something was suspended there, just out of sight, waiting. At midnight, the bell rang a sixth time. Greaves, half mad with fear, thumbed through old texts and marginalia. In the border of a 15th century psalter, he found the warning, "Let none record the seventh peal. To do so is to ring it in ink." He looked down. He had already written 6. The seventh space was still blank. When the final bell tolled, the abbey groaned. The tower seemed to sway. From the north aisle, the sealed pit erupted in a gust of ash. From within, the watcher stepped forth, 7 eyes, each lidless and luminous, its form cloaked in moss and remnants of monastic habit, but its face unwritten, blank. 7 black bells were embedded in its chest, each swinging without touch. "Now thou art summoned," it said. "Now thou shalt toll." Greaves screamed. And then there was silence. Greaves awoke, sprawled across the cold stone floor of the gatehouse, a dull ache pulsing behind his eyes. The fire had long since died. His lamp was empty of oil. Yet the pages of his journal, he could see them clearly, glowed faintly, as if backlit by something beneath the surface. The 7th line he had left blank was no longer empty. A fine black thread of ink now coiled across the parchment, curling down like a rope from an unseen bell. He slammed the book shut. The wind howled outside, and above it, he thought he heard voices, multiple, chanting low in some forgotten tongue, rising and falling like breath through stone. He tried once more to leave, on foot this time, but the fog had thickened into something unnatural, oily and disorienting. Trees he passed reappeared behind him. The brambles tangled tighter with each step. At last he found himself standing again at the edge of the collapsed north aisle, where the watcher had first spoken. There were footprints now, not his, hooved like those of some great stag, but split and burned into the earth as though pressed by molten iron. Back in the gatehouse, Greaves ransacked his valise for charcoal and paper, determined to re-record the sigil from the stone slab. As his pencil scratched across the page, a pressure welled behind his ears. The air thickened. Time slowed. The bell tolled again, the 7th time, and the sound did not end. Instead, it unfolded, stretching like breath drawn from a cathedral nave, a long, trembling peal that seemed to press against the seams of the world. Greaves could not sleep. Each time his eyes closed, he saw the sigil, but now it opened like a wound and something looked back. In dreams, he stood beneath the tower again, but it was no longer ruined. The abbey was whole. Hooded monks processed past him, faces hidden, mouths sewn shut with silver thread. They rang 6 bells, their tones harmonious. Then silence, then a pause, then the 7th, and all the monks dropped to their knees, screaming without sound as their robes began to smolder. He awoke screaming, clutching his chest. On his skin, beneath his shirt, the 7-stroke sigil had been scrawled in ink. By morning, the journal pages had begun to peel and curl, as if rejecting the ink written upon them. The 7th bell rope, visible now even in daylight, hung slack, but swayed gently as though stirred by invisible hands. Greaves descended again into the north aisle. The charnel pit was open, the stone slab shattered, and something had crawled out. In a final act of desperate research, Greaves tore through Holbrook's belongings in the gatehouse and discovered a letter, yellowed with age but addressed not to the steward, but to whoever should find it. It was dated 1734. The bell rang again last night. The 7th. God help us. It cannot be silenced. It rings not for time but for presence. Each peal marks not an hour but a descent. The monks called it Orduum Mortalis, the order of summoning. 7 tones for the 7 bindings, 7 to undo. On the 7th he walks, not into our world but into you. Beneath the letter was a sketch of the watcher, crudely drawn, but unmistakable. A robed figure with a hollow chest, from which 7 bells swung like organs. He does not come to be seen. He comes to see through you. That evening, Greaves did not bother to run. He walked slowly toward the abbey, journal in hand. The wind parted the fog before him like curtains of dust. The tower loomed black against the violet dusk, and the seventh rope stretched taut as he neared. The doors opened. He ascended the spiral stairs for the last time, and there in the belfry, a seventh bell now hung, black, seamless, without seam or mark. It swung slowly back and forth, not ringing but waiting. Greaves stepped forward. His journal flew open, its pages turning violently until the last one stopped on the seventh line. He watched as the ink formed a final blot, and the bell tolled. What remains of Greaves is difficult to say. The journal was found sealed in the altar, cavity of a now shuttered church in Norwich. It had been bricked in and surrounded with chains. Those who opened it described only 7 pages of text, each ending in a single line of black. On the final page, instead of a signature, a bell cord is inked from top to bottom, drawn in exact detail, and beneath it 7 eyes. All who have read it hear something, sometimes only once, sometimes more. If you heard it too, don't worry. It only ever rings for those who see it, and now you've seen it. Subscribe for more stories of ancient rituals, hidden sigils and ruins best left untouched. Remember, not all bells were meant to toll. Not all listeners can unhear.